Hey, this is Tigo. Welcome to Expert Talk. Today I have the privilege of speaking with one of my mentors. His name is Mr. David Patt. He's from my hometown of Chicago, Illinois, and his expertise, nonprofit associations. We're going to talk about nonprofits. We're going to talk about what's going on in Chicago. So sit right there. We'll be right back. Hey, David, how are you?
Okay, Teresa, how about you?
I am good. I am better seeing your face. Oh my goodness, it's good to see you.
Well, it's been a very long time.
It has been an amazing, almost 30 years since I've seen that face. You know, what is going on with Chicago, man? It's like, I see the numbers. Let's start this with this, because somebody might be watching this 2 or 3 years from now. We're actually filming this in the middle of this COVID-19. We've been shut down now for about 4 weeks or so, I want to guess, in Las Vegas. When did you guys shut down in Chicago?
Well, it wasn't sudden. So I would say it's maybe at least two or 3 weeks. You can't really put a time on it because everybody started at a different time.
Okay.
I don't remember when the shutdown order was, but it's got to be 2 or 3 weeks.
So with the shutdown order in Las Vegas, when I go outside, I still see way too many people out there. Are there still a lot of people just going, what shutdown? Do you see a lot of people out there? Okay.
Absolutely. And you know, and especially in congested places. Where I am, you don't see much of that. But you go to the lakefront of Chicago, people are all over the place. And even though they'll say they're alone or with one other person, there's just so many of them that it's congested.
They just can't seem to get it.
They're adhering to stay at home, sort of. People aren't wearing masks. What's happening, though, is that you're seeing an economic divide. The people who can work at home are doing that, and they're doing a lot of their online shopping. Well, who's shopping for them, and who's delivering that stuff? There are people going out there. So, you know, there's still a lot of people doing that, and those are the people who are more likely to get infected. So there's that happening too, because there are a lot of people who have to work. And you have a lot of healthcare people, and they're not all, you know, doctors and nurses. You got therapists, you got PCTs, you got a lot of people. So there's still a lot of activity there. So you got the people who don't care and the people who do care but have no choice.
So how are your grocery stores? I mean, you guys get hit with the toilet paper shortage and the shelves being wiped out and all of that too? Or you guys?
Yeah, because the hoarders got there early. Some of the stuff is showing up now, but it's rationed. There are some foods that you still can't get. The problem, though, is online shopping costs more. You don't get the sales. There's a week or more before you have to order, so you can't get something you need now. You have to anticipate what you're going to need later. And you know, while you want to be grateful to the people, if you're not working, you can't give big tips. And you know, yeah, they're risking their lives for you, but what can you do about it? So that's what's going on. But the smaller stores have stuff, but you have to go in the store now. And if that's what you're trying to avoid, you're not going to get that stuff.
How's the crime rate there? Because, I mean, people outside of Chicago call Chicago Chirac, you know, and I tell people I'm from Chicago.
The last couple of days, there's been a lot, but the crime rate has actually been down. People, you know, I think, though, the longer the stay-at-home rule stays in effect, the more people are going to ignore it because they just have no choice. They can't stay home for lengthy periods of time. They've got to get out. And it's not just the people who say, oh, they're going nuts in their apartment. I'm not sympathetic to those people. But there are people who have to leave. They have to go shopping. They have to go to work. What are they going to do? And they have to find jobs, although there aren't any jobs to find right now.
Right. And you're in a city where you're kind of in the middle. I mean, in New York, you really use public transportation all the time. In LA, you drive everywhere. But in Chicago, you have some people that never drove. They've always used public transportation. And then you have some people that always drove and they never used public transportation. You guys, you're in the middle. So some people, they have to be on buses and trains and do all that to get around. How are they handling that?
Starting today, there's big changes. The CTA's drivers have been given the go-ahead to skip stops if the bus is too crowded. Well, that means people who live close in aren't going to get picked up. It'll be like the blizzard of '79 when trains went way past the platforms. But it's interesting where you see the highest rates. The highest rates of virus are in a cluster of far south side black neighborhoods and in West Rogers Park, which is probably ethnically, culturally, the most diverse neighborhood in the
Right.
city. Beats the hell out of me. I think you have, if you made a list of all the things that contribute to this, a little bit of each of them is in West Rogers Park. Plus,
Right.
I think you have a lot of low-level healthcare providers who have to work. And so they're probably getting
Commuting, bringing it back.
yeah, and of course, then people who live near one of the parks there say that there's always people in the park, always, always, always. So you, on the one hand, you have the people who are really strict about it, and the others who say, "Who cares?" And the others who have no choice but they have to go out. So I think that's what's going on, because it is a weird combination of people. So you don't know.
Wow. So let's go back a little bit. Let's go back, almost 40 years. You hired me in the late 80s to be your administrative director.
Yes.
And who knew? You really gave me a shot, and I totally appreciate that, because I learned so much from you. I mean, I was totally honest. Can I do the job? Yeah. Do I really know it? Kinda. And you said, okay, that's okay. We're going to figure this out together. And I appreciate you, because the things I learned from you then, I still do today. Somebody walks to my office door, I stop. I turn around, I pay attention, I give them that minute, because you told me that's what you do. And I'm like, this is what you do. And I teach my team that, you got to give team respect. That's what you do. But you've been in this thing called nonprofit and associate management for most of your life.
Before I knew you.
Before you knew me. So what brought you into that environment in the first place? What made you choose that for your career?
Well, when I was growing up, my goal was to make the world a better place. I didn't care about money. You just do the things that will make things better. And I figure I'm smart and well-educated. I'll always have what I need, which is not always true. But that's what I did. And so I did all the things that you do to try to make the world a better place. And so I started working for not-for-profits. It just was a natural thing. The pay wasn't great at first. I didn't care.
So how do you determine which nonprofit you're going to work for? Because now you're a consultant. You've gone through being an executive director and running a certain nonprofit to being a consultant for various nonprofits, and we'll get into that. But how do you determine, as you're putting in your applications back in the day, who you're going to work for? Were you focused on political? Because the association we were working with was associated with the League of Women Voters. So were you focused on political, or were you just looking for who you thought was the best fit at the time?
Well, there were two things. One, just who I liked and wanted to help. And my whole effort, the reason I came to the Citizens Information Service is because I believed in community empowerment. You make communities stronger. I think I've loosened up a little, and I've worked for people who I wouldn't have worked for early on, but I still won't work for bad people. So like I work for doctors. That's good. There's nothing wrong with that. And there are a lot of people out there who have not-for-profit associations, and you help them do a better job. So, and I guess as my skills developed, I was a little more interested in using those skills than just what I'm doing them for. Because when I first started, in a lot of volunteer settings, people don't really care about your skills. It's your heart that they care about. Mm-hmm. And at some point, you start realizing that's not enough.
Mm-hmm. So I remember when you left Citizens Information Service and you moved over to CARA, and you were not a runner.
No.
At all, period. We didn't even understand runners back then. And you moved over and came back and got me, thank you so much, and brought me over, and I didn't understand runners either. And you became a runner. And just so people know, Chicago Area Runners Association is where you went, and you became a runner for how many years?
Well, gosh, I started running 27 years ago. And,
wow.
And I never intended to. Although running, I didn't realize how good it is. That's one of the most accepting places you'll ever be. Nobody in running cares about your politics or your race or your religion or your lifestyle or anything. They just want to run. And they help anybody who wants to run, regardless of anybody's ideology or anything else. But I didn't know that at the time. I just figured, well, running is a good thing. It doesn't hurt anybody. And I was also at the point where my professional skills had developed enough that I cared more about those. And we pulled off a phenomenal turnaround there.
Oh, yeah.
Which I would not have anticipated years earlier. I wouldn't have cared years earlier. But here I thought that was a really good thing. And so that's what got me there.
Talk about a complete turnaround. I mean, when you went there, they were close to closing the doors.
One foot in the grave. I mean, it wasn't the easiest thing. And, the thing I tell other people now is when you go into a situation, no matter how bad you think it is, it's going to be worse. Because every time you plug up one hole, something else pops out. And I had no idea it was going to be that bad. But I was up for a challenge.
But you brought it back. I mean, you brought it back. That organization was a part of almost every major race that happened, and not just in Chicago, but in Illinois, period. And you brought it back.
Well, one of the things that helped, I think, is there were a few key people on the board, the president in particular, who had my back. I remember when everything I tried would work, and then something else wouldn't work. And one day I sat down with her and I said to her, you should start thinking about how to run this place on a volunteer basis. She turned white. She says, no way. She says, do whatever you have to, but get us out of this. And so I knew that I had opportunities that I might not have had otherwise because they didn't know what to do. So they were coming at me to find a way. And I found a way, and I didn't do it all by myself, but I found a way. I figured out how to do things that nobody else had figured out. And so it worked very nicely.
Hi, are you a business owner, an entrepreneur, or starting your own business and wish you had an opportunity to sit down with an expert in your field? Well, check your local listings and watch Expert Talk with Tigo. I'm Tigo, and I'll talk to you very soon.
Here's 4 reasons your business needs to go mobile today. 1. If your site or mobile app is hard to use on a mobile device, you'll drive your customers to your competitors. 61% of people said that they'd quickly move on to another site if they don't find what they're looking for right away. If they don't like what they do find, 79% will look elsewhere. 2. Having a mobile-friendly site can boost your business. 74% of people say that they're more likely to return to a mobile-friendly site in the future. 3. You may not get a second chance. First impressions are powerful and lasting. 46% of people won't return to a website they'd had trouble accessing on a phone, and 57% won't recommend it. 4. Good mobile experiences can drive revenue. 67% of mobile users say that they're more likely to buy a product or use a service offered by a mobile-friendly experience. Create a mobile app and mobile website today and gain an edge over your competition.
So speaking of 1 foot in the grave, quote unquote, that you said, and coming back, a lot of nonprofits are going to have to come back after this COVID-19. I think a great percentage may not be able to come back because of what's going on. What is your feelings about that? How many do you think that a lot will make it through this?
Well, they're all different, and that's the thing. The one difference for all groups is that most of them counted on in-person activities, and you can't do those now. So it's how they're going to react to those. And different ones are going to react differently. If you have a real large reserve or an access to a line of credit, you're more likely to survive reasonably intact than a group that doesn't. That's the whole point of having a reserve. So when you encounter bad times, like now, you can keep operating. Larger organizations sometimes have a little more flexibility. Also, your source of income is matters. Are you getting money from meetings, from membership, from donations? So that varies as well. And what's the culture of your group? If you're in New York City, you have a very different culture than if you're in rural Wyoming. And that's going to dictate what you're going to do. So I think a lot of organizations, it really matters what position they're in, primarily financially, but also how they deal with survival here. And there are going to be things that they come out positive, but quite a few negative.
So are you going to be doing, or are you currently doing, like virtual coaching for organizations like this? Because they need somebody like you.
Well, that's something I would recommend. I don't personally do that. There are technical people who know how to do that. And that's probably one of the areas that's most significant here. Right now, a lot of organizations are trying to do things online, move an entire meeting online, which you can do with various degrees of success. But in the process, they're learning more about digital education. They're finding that some of the things that they would never have thought they could do online, maybe they can. And other things they didn't even think of. And now they're realizing, hey, this might be a good opportunity. The other thing they're finding is that since they're moving big meetings, they can charge for this. Because in the past, it's difficult because people they expect webinars for free. But if you have a whole meeting and it's not just a webinar, you got speakers, you got interactive things, you've got product demonstrations. There are all different things you can do. And those people who do that are gonna survive a little better. But there's a lot of different options that they're going to have to follow to get through all that.
So going back to running, what do you think running and races is going to feel from this COVID? Because, social distancing and the whole health side. And how do you think that's going to recover when you're talking Boston Marathon and the Peach Run? And how is that going to affect?
Well, the Chicago Area Runners Association is doing something called Run Solo. And the idea is you go out and run, which is okay, by yourself or with one other person, assuming you're 6 feet apart. They even have sort of a race. And normally I don't think it would work, but under the current circumstances, it probably would. You pay a fee, they mail you a number just like if you were running in a race, and you record your time and send it back. But they're doing as much as they can to get you to go out and run, recognizing there are no groups.
Wow.
So there are some things you can do that wouldn't work under different circumstances, but may work now. But then what happens later on, well, people want to go out in groups. And so I think there's going to be this pent-up desire to do that, but a lot of people are still going to be cautious. So it's going to be a gradual thing. And I don't know about these big races and these big get-togethers. That may take a while longer. So if an organization is reliant on that income, they're going to be hurting really badly.
For a while.
That's all they do. Like the Chicago Marathon, I don't know what its pockets are like, but that's going to hurt them big time.
Yeah, because once the race is over, you sleep for a day and you start planning next year.
Yep.
And with this going on, oh my goodness.
And they get 45,000 people sign up, and that's at $80 a crack. That's a huge chunk of money, plus sponsorship. And other races are just like that, and they've got to figure out what to do. But see, other organizations that are like their primary thing is a trade show or an educational conference. Some of them, again, it depends on what they can do. Some of those activities may be conducive online. Some of these groups may not be able to do that, so they'll merge with somebody else, or they'll just go under. I don't think they want to go back to volunteer status because the people on the boards now are not worker bees. They're the thinkers, not the doers. And so they have to totally remake an organization. So that'll be a tough one. And again, it depends on your finances and the extent that you were in connection with your members and that you retain that loyalty so that when things come back, they'll come back. But that's going to be a problem too. If your people have been out of work, they're not going to rejoin no matter how much they want to. If they are accustomed to having their employers pay for them to go to meetings and they're even willing to go to the meetings, a lot of employers aren't going to do that anymore.
Right.
Cost cutting. So there's still going to be, it's going to take a while for a total rebound.
So what about people that have been wanting or had planned on starting, a non-for-profit before all this hit, and now they're going, oh man, did I wait too late? Can I never start this? Do you think there's an opportunity still there for nonprofits to start up?
This is a bad time because, first of all, I'm skeptical of people who want to start not-for-profits to begin with. A lot of them are trying to create a job for themselves. And so they identify themselves as founders and they just run everything. And I don't think that's a good idea. But if you're going to do something now, or if you're an existing association and just want to start up a new project, you had no way of knowing the timing is not good. But like if you're thinking of starting a not-for-profit, it depends on what your contacts are. And if anything, perhaps this ferrets out those people who are just trying to serve themselves. There's some foundations that are doubling up, doubling down, whatever the phrase is, and they're giving more money. Others are holding back because they're worried that their assets are going to dissipate. So it depends who you have connection to. And they don't give to one-person organizations. They want a live organization. Organizations that, if you're going to live on donations, well, if the people who are donors are financially secure, they may still give if you make the right appeal. But you can't do an event to draw them out. You got to do it in some other way. But if these are people who simply have high incomes and they don't have those high incomes anymore, they're not giving.
Right.
So there are a lot of challenges. So it was a tough one to begin with. It's going to be even tougher now. And when you really think about it, what causes are there that nobody's paying attention to that you've got to start a new organization for? You know, if you're really concerned about something, go get involved in an existing organization. Help that one. That's really the best thing you can do.
Well, one of the things I learned from you out of the many is my first education in politics came from David Patt. So where do you stand with this election coming up, with what just happened yesterday, with Sanders stepping down? Where do you stand? How are you feeling with everything happening with COVID? You know, are you feeling this is going to be messy? Is it going to be cleaner now? Where do you think is going to happen next?
It makes it more unpredictable than it ever was before. And by the way, I've very effectively, I think, kept my politics out of my profession, because
you have
people in professions don't want to talk in politics, up to the extent that it affects directly what you're doing. So, you know, who I campaign for, who I vote for is irrelevant. I think the thing is, there's a strong feeling that we could have been better prepared. And I think the real problem is, and this applies for associations too, you've got to be honest about what's going on. If something's bad, don't try to act like it's no, it's not bad, like somehow it reflects negatively on you. You take control of the problem. You don't let the problem take control of you. And that's true in any situation. So I think that's one of the things we have to grapple with now. But as far as the politics, everything's up in the air. You can't go out and politic in person. And, you know, you have to be careful how you criticize. But, you know, it's everybody's got a personality that's a little bit different. If your personality is to insult people and be a bully, well, you know, that's going to come back at you. But you have to be careful about this. There are a lot of people who still don't believe that this is a problem, that somehow it's just not. Well, some of them have died. So hopefully, you know, people realize that this is a problem. And
as these death numbers go up and these infection numbers go up, the naysayers are starting to go, maybe this thing is real, because it's the numbers. You go to sleep overnight, you get up the next day and it's jumped a few thousand. You kind of go, what just happened? Yes. It's something that you know, my parents were born in 1920 and 24, and they told me stories about things that happened in history over time, and they kind of marked their lives there. This is, that's when this happened, that's when that happened. This is definitely something that'll mark in everybody's life, you know, before COVID, after COVID. It'll definitely be something that we'll never forget, you know, that we'll never forget.
Well, one thing I think is going to happen, if this stay-at-home stays too long, people are going to start ignoring it because they just can't afford to stay home anymore.
Yeah.
They're going to incorporate the possibility of infection in their everyday lives. And they're going to take chances that they really don't want to take because they don't have any choice. And so that's what you're going to see too. And I don't know how that affects associations, because associations tend to be more cautious just in general. So but there's going to be a strong feeling of, what the hell, we just can't sit here doing nothing.
Yeah, and with a city like Las Vegas, we live off of tourism. You know, that's our bread and butter. So I don't know what's going to happen here. You know, I never thought there would ever be a moment when the Strip would close down. You know, you might close the world, but you're never going to stop casinos. That's just not going to happen. And to see that, to drive by it, and it just, you know, literally I have a video of geese walking down the Strip. You know, because it's quiet enough for the geese to go down. That you just never thought that. And they just extended again. to the end of April, and they're talking about extending to mid-May. And it's like, I don't know how this city is going to survive, because we don't have a financial district. We don't have a factory district. We do, food, shopping, and gambling. That's what keeps us alive around here. So it's going to
Well, I
be
think it's
interesting.
also when people talk about the economy, that's very impersonal. You got to talk about all the jobs, all the people, and the people you don't see, the cab drivers, the concierges, the people who wheel the chips to the tables. I mean, what happens to them? The maids in the hotels, they're all out of work, and they can't afford to be out of work. So something's going to
Exactly.
happen. And
Yeah.
if the direction goes in that, if the discussion goes in that direction, I think we're more likely to get some results than if we just talk about, quote, the economy.
Yeah. Quote, the economy. You, sir, are amazing. I thank you for everything you ever taught me. I thank you for this interview for sure. I definitely want to talk to you again, because you're definitely an expert when it comes to nonprofits, but you're also an expert on team building and management and understanding people. And you taught me to see people's talent, not, their education on a piece of paper, and not, what their resume says. It's like, what's their heart say? What's their drive say? Are they going to be here on time? Are they going to stay that extra hour or that extra day? And I learned that from you, and I appreciate you.
Well, and I thank you for everything you did, because it was a pleasure working for you. And if people would follow your model, a lot of them would do a whole lot better than they have.
Well, I thank you for your time today, and I want you guys to be safe out there. I can't wait to come home. I haven't been home in 10 years.
Wow.
So I know Chicago has changed. I see it on television and go, where did that building come from? What is that? The shoreline just looks like an entirely different city. But I still see our little building in front of the pink building and go, that was our office right there.
It's there, but it's something else now.
It's something else now. I thank you, sir, and I appreciate your time.
Okay, well, thank you. Take care.
Thank you. Hey, this is Tigo. You know who I am, and I'll talk to you next time.